According to the ancient Maya text, the Popol Vuh, the universe didn't start with a bang. It began with a tense, silent expanse, just an empty sky over a placid, dark sea, waiting for an order to be given. The creator gods, Tepu and Gukumats, wanted to fill this void, but they had a strict design requirement. They needed to engineer beings with memory, beings who could speak, think, and intentionally invoke the names of the gods he made them. Their first prototypes failed completely. They designed animals, but the creatures could only squawk and howl. They couldn't form words. So the gods tried modeling a person out of mud. It couldn't turn its head, it had no mind, and as soon as it hit the water, it simply melted away. The third attempt was carved from wood. These figures walked on all fours and even spoke, but they had no souls and quickly forgot their creators. The gods sent a great flood to destroy them, and the few that survived were transformed into the monkeys you see in the forests today. Creating the universe was a messy, iterative process of trial and error. By the end of this third attempt, the creators were still missing a critical piece of the puzzle. They had the water and the sky, but they lacked a design that could actually survive and sustain itself on the earth. These failed creation attempts left a power vacuum. The world was trapped in a cloudy twilight. There was no real sun and no real moon to guide the way. In that dim light, earthly arrogance took over. A vain being named Vukub-Kakweeks decided he would declare himself the sun. To back up his claim, his two sons began violently shaking the mountains to level the earth and enforce their father's dominance. While chaos ruled the surface, a darker tyranny operated underground. Deep below, the lords of Xibalba controlled the underworld. Their primary job was spreading disease, sudden death, and fear. When a heroic ballplayer named Hun-Hunappu went down to challenge them, they rigged the game, tortured him, and murdered him. That murder proved a harsh reality. Brute force and honorable play were no match for the underworld's deception. Between a narcissistic dictator on the surface and a syndicate of death below, the cosmos was entirely out of balance. The universe was far too hostile for the final version of humanity to launch. Down in the underworld, the severed head of the murdered ballplayer, Hun-Hunappu, hung in a tree. When a maiden approached it, the skull spit into her hand, miraculously impregnating her. She escaped to the surface and gave birth to the hero twins, Hunappu and Xbalanque. The twins were a new kind of hero. They looked at the chaotic world and realized that raw physical dominance was a losing strategy. To dismantle the threats, they would have to rely on trickery and observation. Their first target was the false sun, Vukub-Kakweeks, whose power came from his shining, jeweled teeth. The twins shot him with a blowgun, then disguised themselves as traveling healers. When the tyrant asked them to cure his pain, they swapped his jewels for dull grains of white corn, stripping his glory. Next, they took out his earth-shaking sons. They lured one under a massive mountain with a fake crab trap, letting the collapsing rock crush him. For the other, they roasted a bird and rubbed it with a special dirt. Once the giant ate the dirt-laced meat, his strength vanished, and they buried him. By targeting their enemies' greed and appetite, the twins successfully cleared the giant impostors from the earthly surface. Through careful deception, equilibrium was finally restored to the earth. With the surface cleared, the twins deliberately descended into Xibalba to play the same ballgame that killed their father. But unlike him, they knew exactly what they were walking into. This flowchart mapping Xibalba shows the grueling gauntlet they had to face. Look at the volume of lethal barriers here. The House of Darkness, the House of Cold, jaguars, bats, and fire. The lords expected the twins to be shredded or frozen. Instead, the boys survived the House of Bats by simply shrinking down and sleeping inside the tubes of their own blowguns. Then the twins targeted the lords' anonymity. They sent a mosquito ahead of them to sting the lords one by one in the dark. As each lord was bitten, they cried out, and the others would ask, "What bit you, Hun-Kame? What happened, Vukub-Kame?" By the time the twins walked into the throne room, they knew every single hidden name. The lords then commanded the twins to provide 4 bowls of prized flowers by dawn. The twins simply enlisted armies of leafcutter ants. The ants sneaked past the guards, dismantled the flowers petal by petal, filling the bowls perfectly on time. The twins proved that knowledge and observation can dismantle even the most rigged games. By outsmarting the underworld's hidden rules, they stripped the lords of their leverage. Despite winning every game, the twins reached a realization. Death cannot be killed through conventional combat. So when the lords of Xibalba built a massive cosmic oven filled with burning branches, the twins didn't fight back. They embraced each other and jumped straight into the flames. But jumping was a crucial misdirection. The twins had planned their own resurrection. They instructed two seers to advise the lords to grind their burned bones like cornmeal and cast them into the river. The bone dust settled on the riverbed, and days later, the twins walked out of the water disguised as ragged, wandering street performers. They traveled through the underworld performing a magic act. They would sacrifice a dog, a house, and even each other, cutting off arms and legs before bringing everything back to life. Word of this performance reached the supreme lords of Xibalba. Driven by their own arrogance, the lords demanded to experience Basalt themselves. They begged the street performers to sacrifice them. The twins obliged, cutting down the kings of the underworld, and then they simply stopped the show. They never brought them back. The lords of death were destroyed by their own insatiable vanity. Their desire for absolute power blinded them to the trap the twins had laid. In the immediate aftermath, the twins dropped their ragged disguises. They revealed their true identities to the survivors of the underworld and formally demoted the remaining denizens of Xibalba. They laid down a new cosmic law. Xibalba was permanently stripped of its lethal authority. The underworld would no longer have the power to suddenly seize people. The tyranny was broken. Back on the surface, a sign confirmed this victory. Reeds that the twins had planted in their grandmother's house before leaving suddenly sprouted new green life. The cosmos was finally safe. This is the central argument of the Popol Vuh. In this world, brute force and loud voices are eventually silenced by those with the wit to outlast them. With the chaos cleared, the true dawn could finally begin.